Hello and welcome. We appreciate you coming to the Institute of Real Estate Education review class. These are a series of classes that we put on YouTube that you're welcome to watch. They're particularly helpful for those of you that are a little bit nervous about walking into the national exam and for real estate licensing, of course. So what we do with these reviews is we go through a series of questions. Tonight, we'll be doing about 18 questions, and most of them have to do with agent behavior, things you can do and you cannot do. And our format is to take a question, discuss it, and give you a chance to answer it if you so desire. But there's no one grading you. Just make a commitment, and then you'll learn a little bit easier. So, with me tonight is the owner of our school and our technical advisor for tonight's class. He's actually the one running all the PowerPoint and everything, and that is Mr. Danny Naylor. So say hi, Danny.
Hi.
Okay. The next time I ask you to say hi, I won't when you're eating. Anyway, hey, look, come on. If you can't have fun, then don't do it. All right. So we're gonna have a little fun along the way as well. So let's start right in with question number one. Here we go. Okay, in this situation, we have an agent that wants to put a sign on a property. I mean, hey, you got a listing maybe, or maybe you don't, but you're thinking, boy, a lot of traffic on this street. If I could just get a for sale sign here, that would be great. But there's something you got to get before you can put a sign on any property, because you cannot place a sign on a property without A, notifying Division of Real Estate, B, having their broker present. Okay, you mean your broker? I don't know. C, getting permission from the owner, or D, getting an option to purchase the property. Well, out of all those, of course, folks, it's got to be C, getting permission from the owner. I mean, there's a major street in our community. It's called Orchard, and a lot of traffic cuts through there. There's several large subdivisions on either side, and it's busy, busy, busy street all the time. And my wife and I had three listings, and they were all on Orchard. and because we'd worked that area, and it just so happened that we found three. We had a vacant lot and two other improved lots that had houses on them. We had three signs, and so we would go meet with people. I say, we see your signs all over town. Well, yeah, I had three signs on Orchard. That was it. But you know, signs are great, and they can bring you a lot of business because people do see them. And if they pop up here and there, if you've got a subdivision, every listing you get should get you another listing, because you can put up another sign in that same area. And that's just kind of keep that as a mantra. Every listing should get you another listing. Number two, please.
Hey, hope you're enjoying the video. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of them. And if you want even more review material, we have in the Prep My Exam link in the comments. We've got a plethora of practice exams. We have audiobooks. We have an exam simulator. We have everything that our students use to pass the exam on their first try. Okay? And if you want to get licensed in Utah, check out realestateonlinelearning.com and we'll hook you up.
Okay, number two says an agent can sell their own property without listing it through their brokerage, as long as they put a sign you know on that particular sign. Put a term on the sign, which is owner agent, sales agent, broker agent, independent agent. Now, what's happening here is we have a real estate licensee who evidently, I guess, doesn't have a lot of faith in our industry and in our own business, who decides, well, I can do it for sale by owner on my own property. I don't need to use the MLS. I don't need to have help because I know how to do this. And maybe you're right. But what do you think? They're selling their own property without listing it through their brokerage. And obviously, you don't want to do this without your broker's permission. They need to know everything you're doing in real estate. So if you're an investor and you're working for a broker and you like to buy and sell a lot of stuff on your own account, you still need to keep your broker informed on what you're doing, even though you're not running it through the company. But the answer to this one is it owner agent, sales agent, broker agent, or independent agent? Well, obviously, the key is in that word, their own property. Well, that's owner agent, isn't it? So the answer to this one, number two, is owner agent. You can sell it for sale by owner. It's probably not going to speak so highly of your commitment to our industry. I mean, But if it's a hot property, you think you can find your own buyer and forego splitting a commission with someone else. That's kind of up to you. But you've got to identify yourself as an agent. And you ought to, many states have the requirement that you, on that first meeting with someone at that property, like let's say they come to an open house and it's not identified with the brokerage, it just says, it's like an owner open house. You need to tell them you're an agent immediately, on first meeting. A lot of states have that requirement. Let's look at number 3, please. All right, number 3 says the commission rate in Utah is 5, 6, 7, or determined by the parties of the transaction. Well, this kind of would make you think, well, is there a prescribed commission rate in Utah that everyone has to use, or a regulated rate that we all use? No, most states don't have anything like that because commissions are negotiable, So whether you get 5, 6, 7, or 10 or 12 or whatever it is, it's obviously going to be determined by the parties in the transaction. Commissions are negotiable. So there is no standard commission rate in Utah. There's a rate that a lot of people use, which is either 6 or 7, let's say 2 rates. But hey, I mean, you might want to take it at 5. I don't know. Might want to take it at 4. I don't know. You might want to take it at 8 or 9 or 10, whatever. And so when you're taking this commit, you sit down and you're negotiating with the owner. So who really determines what the rate's going to be? If there is no regulated rate for the state, it's got to be what? Negotiable. Look at answer D. Determined by the parties in the transaction. And that, of course, will be in the listing contract, right? So when you're in there and you're taking a listing, they say, well, what are you going to charge? Well, my standard rate is 7%. And they say, well, we hear a lot of people going 6 or 5. I said, well, I have another standard of 6 and maybe even have a standard of 5. You might be lowering your standards once in a while. Depends on the market, and what you can get. But, I mean, if there's a little bit of negotiating there, I mean, good grief, it's a wonderful property. It's going to sell in 4 days. You might be a little bit more negotiable. If you think it's a dog or a turkey, it's going to take you 6 months, a lot of advertising and effort, then, hold your ground, But and of course, if you're not the principal broker or broker for the firm, a lot of that's going to be regulated by your broker anyway. But a lot of brokers give you a lot of latitude on that. Let's go to number 4, please. Here we have Agent L, and they want to encourage their client to list with them. So they draft a listing contract that says that the seller will get their asking price for the home, and any money received over that asking price goes to the agent, which is true. This agent must give half the revenue to their broker. Okay, whatever. This is illegal. Okay, or C, the agent must get written permission from the client. Well, you always have to get written permission from the client. There's no such thing as a verbal listing. You need to have it in writing. D, the client must meet the broker before signing. Well, most of your transactions, your clients will never meet your broker at all, ever. So throw that one out. Hang on to C for a minute. But really, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a net listing, a listing that says, okay, how much do you want? Well, I want 300,000. Okay, if I get you 300,000, whatever I get over that, I'll keep. That's called a net listing, and they're illegal in virtually every state in the United States. So which is true? I would go with B. And if you did, then you're smart, okay? Because this is one you're not going to miss. So net listings are illegal in virtually every state in the union. Look at number 5, please. S has a property listed that is not selling. S needs to do something to stimulate interest. Her first idea is to advertise a property at a lower price than the current listing price. Okay? To advertise a property less than the listed price. Well, guys, if that doesn't feel right to you, well, that's your instincts are right on the money. I mean, we cannot list or advertise a property for less than the listed price. Okay, so let's look at A. The best way to do this is to advertise that the owner will consider an offer. If the owner lists a property for 500,000, that's the price. And if you indicate to anyone that there's a possibility of them reducing that price, you're not only on thin ice, you've already broken through and you're about to drown. D, this is illegal as long as the listing price is also included in the ad, such as newly reduced from. Okay, that's okay. C, prices lower than the listed price may not be advertised, only suggested in person. Okay. Oh boy. The listed price is the only price that may be advertised or quoted unless you have written consent of the owner to do so. Okay. So out of all those, which you think is the correct answer? Come on, guys. It's got to be what? If you're voting for D, you're right on the money. Okay. You can't advertise lower than the listed price. I mean, if they want to say, well, maybe 500 is too much, maybe we ought to, try to get something around 485. Okay, well then officially lower the price, and then you can do it. Change the price on the MLS and change the price. Have a written price reduction from the owner that you put in the file, and then away you go. You know, that's the proper way to do it. We cannot advertise, we cannot indicate um, that they might go lower. They'll ask you, well, you think they go lower? Well, I know what they will do for sure, and that's 500,000. But you can write an offer, we'll see what they say, but they're pretty adamant about five, but you never know. Look, number 6, broker A is in Vernal. They list a property in Roosevelt, which is pretty near Vernal, under an exclusive right to sell listing. Broker B in Roosevelt does not sell through the listing broker. What could this possibly create? All right, so you live in Vernal, and that's where you operate mostly, but maybe this particular client of yours owns a rental property in Roosevelt. They say, well, why don't you list that one too? And so you do. And that's, it's not out of the market area. It is a little bit away, but it's not totally out of the market area. A lot of agents work both those markets. But what could but then there's a broker B that lives in Roosevelt, and maybe since it's a smaller town, maybe they know the owners. They don't go through your brokerage. They totally ignore the sign, which is a big no-no. They should have never have done that. But broker B is going to be in big trouble anyway. But you don't want to get in trouble. But what could this create? A dual agency, double commission, double contract, or dual disposition? Dual disposition. That's a moody spouse. I don't know. Anyway, um, look at dual agency. Dual agency is where you're working for both the buyer and the seller. That's not what's happening here. Okay, you've got two different brokers, broker A and broker B. You got broker B that's erring and could be possibly have their license disciplined for what they're doing because they have to go through the listing broker. Is it a double contract? C? No, it's not a double contract. Double contract is where you're trying to confuse or mislead a lender into thinking that you're paying more for the property, which is really not true. You want a $100,000 100% loan, and so you write up a contract that is false. It shows you're paying 120. You've already given them 20, and so you're paying 100 at the closing. That's a double, means there's two contracts. One you show the lender, and one you don't. The real one. Well, this is going to get you revoked. And this is not honoring your fiduciary at all. It's not a double commission either, is it? Or is it double agency? So we're down to 2. What do you think, guys? You think it's A? I can't see your hands, but raise your hand if you think it's A. Well, you're wrong. Okay, it's B. It's a double commission. Okay. All right. Now, what do you mean a double commission? Well, because broker B wants a commission and broker A has a contract. Now, broker B might have a contract too, but broker B is in big hot water here because if one of your competitors gets a listing, even if this is a former client of yours or a relative of yours, you'd be surprised. Your brother-in-law decides to list with a different person other than you. That's going to rub you the wrong way. I understand, but maybe they didn't want you privy to all their financial facts. Maybe they're in trouble on the property. Maybe the property is almost in foreclosure or something, or they're behind in payment. You don't know. And they don't want that getting out in the family that they're having trouble. So don't get entirely offended. Sometimes they just want to be more private. Hopefully, though, they realize that you're a great agent and that you deserve that listing, and no one loves them like you do, and no, certainly not broker B doesn't maybe even know them that well. But anyway, that could be a double commission. Why? Because you have a listing. You have a written contract that says that you will be paid if this is sold. And you assume broker B has one as well. Well, that's double contracts. No, double contract is when you have two sales agreements. We're talking about a listing contract. This obligates that seller to pay two commissions, one to broker B and one to broker A. Now, the division, when they dig into this, they're going to see which listing was the first. That's the broker that didn't do anything wrong. Broker B is the broker that should have known, or maybe they did know that there was already a listing. I guess the seller could have lied or something, but if the division digs into this, broker B is going to be the one that's going to be at fault or in trouble because he's subjecting that seller to pay a double commission. Be very careful when you are working, for instance, expired listings. I made great commissions working expired listings, things that didn't sell. The MLS will send you a notification saying that listing has expired, and you can be there the next day after the expiration and be talking to them about listing with you, get that listed back on the market, and there's no problem listing something after it expires. There's a huge problem trying to go behind the sign like this broker B did and list something that is already listed for sale, and that B is going to be in big, big trouble here. Let's go to number 7, please. Okay, number 7 talks about N, who's a real estate agent, and often receives referrals from a friend who works in the office next door. Now, maybe this is someone that deals with people who are moving into the valley, whatever, I don't know. Maybe the office next door is a bank and people are coming in to get new accounts, and they say, yeah, we're moving here from California. We're looking for a house, but we wanted to get our bank account going. And so they give you referrals of people that, might be moving into the area and, or maybe someone that wants to sell. Okay. Buying referrals or selling referrals, either way, we love them. Okay. And so you give them a little gift. It's okay in our state, Utah, to give an unsolicited referral a little stipend, and the cutoff on that's $250. So you might be thinking, well, $50, I go pay up to 200. The problem with this is he often receives referral from this guy. So that's not necessary. So what you need to make sure is this is unsolicited. Hey, find some more of these and I'll give you another $50. That is soliciting referrals. So, hey, I appreciate the referral. But it was, I would even send them a little email saying something effective. Well, that's quite a surprise. Thank you so much. I mean, thanks for thinking of me. Anything that would indicate that you weren't expecting this, because this looks like you're paying an unlicensed person part of your commission. Okay. So N's not following commission, or N is not following division rules. N could possibly have their license revoked. N can receive a gift amount, can increase the gift amount under a certain number of referrals. N can use referrals as an experience towards their broker's license. Well, referral is something that hasn't led to a transaction. The only thing that's going to get you a point or points towards your broker's license is a closed transaction. Even if you listed a property and it didn't sell, that's not going to work. It has to be a closed transaction. So it's not D. Okay, let's look at C. Can increase the gift amount after a certain number? No. That sounds like you're setting up a program with them. And if they have a license, fine. But if they, of course, you have to pay through their broker. But if they don't have a license and you're setting this up, maybe it's someone that meets people that's coming into town a lot. Hey, every time this happens, they'll give you 50. Can't do that. It has to be an unsolicited referral. So what do you think? Are they following rules? Well, uh, perhaps, but it says which is true, and what is most true is N could have their license revoked. B. Okay. Oh, N says is following division rules. Is, with the N kind of made me in my head put not in there, but it is N is following rules. No. Now you can't give an unlicensed you can't enter into a situation with someone where you're, hey, every time you send me a lead, I'll give you $50. Can't do that unless they have a license, and then only if you pay through their broker. And there's some people that get a lot of opportunities to send referrals. Maybe it would be a good idea for them to get a real estate license. And there are some companies that are set up where that's all they do is refer business. You just place your license with that company. You don't list and sell, but you could get a referral commission only if you're licensed. Okay. Now, what if it's not solicited? What if it's just, someone who gave you a referral? Yeah, you can give them a gift, but you can't have a handshake or written agreement saying you will give them a gift every time they do this. That would be a solicited referral. And the cutoff is $250. So $50, you're a tightwad. Give them a little more. Okay. Whatever. Okay. But you can't have something set up with somebody. Fancy hotels downtown where people, that have money, they're moving into town. They want to stay at a nice place as a nice restaurant and a pool and sauna and workout place and whatever. And they're gonna be living there for a week. Their company's picking up the tab as part of their relocation package. Man, those are great leads. Uh, and it would really be very helpful to know the concierge at that hotel, or maybe someone in registration that could kind of give you a heads up. Hey, I got someone's going to be living here for a week. Man, that would be great. But you can't have a deal with them where they're going to get money every time they do that. That would be a solicited referral. The only way you could do that is if they got a license, and then you'd have to pay that through their broker. Okay, whoever that is. Maybe it's your broker. Okay, number 8, please. An agency agreement is required prior to which of the following? Prior to showing any property to a buyer, before an offer is written, giving details of a listing to a potential buyer. I mean, taking a buyer to a potential lender. Okay. Are you going to get a buyer's listing before you take a potential lender? Probably not. I mean, we regularly send people that want to buy properties or say they want to buy properties to lenders. I don't put them in my car if I can avoid it. Now, sometimes they're calling on a sign call, and you've never met them. You're meeting them at the property. Okay, I'll do that. Sure. They're saying we're coming in from California. We're staying at the Marriott here in town, and hey, that's probably a great buyer. I'm going to meet them at the property, but I'm also going to send them to a local lender too, and make sure they're qualified, so that you're not showing them $2 million houses when they can afford three, or you're not showing them $2 million houses when they can only afford 1.5. So, taking them to a potential lender is a good idea, but not necessarily required. What is required is that they say, I'd like to write an offer. And so you can't write an offer in our state, Utah. Okay, you shouldn't be writing offers for people unless you have a buyer's agreement. Okay, that's just step one. Well, before we do this offer, I need to have the authorization to do so. Now, if they're hesitant to sign a blank authorization, or not, I shouldn't say blank, but universal buyer's agreement with you, that whatever they look at now, they're going to work with you. That's what you want, because they may not get their offer accepted on this property. That's fine. You're going to have 3 or 4 more for them lined up when you call them and tell them they were rejected. Hey, I found some better ones, actually. Let's go look at those. That's why it's nice to have that written agreement. And you really need to do that to be in compliance with the rules and regs. So the correct answer to this one is B, before an offer is written. Okay. And that's just, a proper way of doing business, and, in cementing people to you. getting them to sign that buyer's agreement is fine. Now, if they don't want to do that, they say, well, I'm not going to sign a universal, whatever, committing us to you, then okay, we'll do a one property listing where you sign the normal buyer's listing contract, but you just limit it to that particular property. You might try that if that's all you can get. Okay, number 9, please. These are great questions because this is what you're going to be doing for a living here pretty quick. As soon as you get this test out of the way, get your license. Number 9, which of the following is not required of a sub-agent? You have agent, you have sub-agent, okay? Which of the following is not required of a sub-agent? Is it permission of the broker? Is it equal fiduciary duties with the agent? Is it equal commission split with an agent? Okay, or is it written sub-agency agreement? Okay, now look up the question again and see the word not. Which one is not required? Okay, do you need permission from your broker? Sure. Are the fiduciary duties equal between an agent and a sub-agent? Yeah. Okay. Equal commission split? Well, that's not necessarily required. That's our answer. D, written sub-agency agreement. Yeah, your agency agreements need to be written. Okay, whether they're a listing contract or a buyer's contract, it needs to be written. Now, all contracts that you write as a sales agent, really, they're owned by your broker. Okay, so the broker is actually the one that is the agent, and really, you're more of a sub-agent. But a lot of times on those buyer agreements, you'll list both the broker and then you as sub-agent. Look at number 10, please. Okay, number 10 is under the division rules. Which of the following is not correct? Okay, net listings shall not be taken by a licensee. Well, net listings are not legal. So is not correct. They want to know is not correct. That is correct. Okay, when requested by a client, the agent must give them copies of documents of both sides of the transactions. Hang on to that one because that's the correct answer, but it sounds like it probably should be true. Well, you got to give them copies of all the documents. Okay, but we'll come back to this in just a minute. C, agents shall keep their broker informed regarding their transactions. Well, obviously you have to do that. I mean, you do that because, if you're writing up an offer for someone, even though it's not accepted, you still have to give a copy of that to your broker. Most brokers are required or feel like they're required to keep copies of offers that were made but weren't necessarily accepted or failed. Okay, they need copies of all that. And D, a principal broker cannot keep part of the earnest money unless both parties agree. Well, that is correct. We're looking for something that's not correct. And that is B, when requested by the client, the agent must give them copies of the documents from both sides of the transaction. Now, why is that not correct? Well, because when it says both sides, there's a listing side and there's a sales side. If you're working with the buyer, okay, whether the client is the buyer or the seller, you don't have copies of the other side of the transaction. You don't have that buyer's listing if someone brought a offer to one of your houses you had for sale. Okay, and if you're working on the other side, you're working with the buyer. You don't have copies of that listing contract that the other agent had when he put that deal together. And so they're entitled to all of the contracts that would be connected with their side of the transaction, but not the other side. Okay. Now the settlement sheets are usually split now too. So you have a buyer side copy of the settlement sheet and a seller side. It's really none of the buyer's business what's on the seller side. But on the other hand, a lot of times, they don't, they may end up with a copy of that if both sides are on one set of documents. But usually they do it now with buyer's side and seller side because they really only should be interested in just their side of the transaction. How much the seller nets or didn't net, or if the seller was underwater and brought money to the transaction to get the deal closed. It's really, as long as the title company has decided that, that it's a kosher transaction and and they will ensure that, then there's really not a lot of concern there, and they really don't need the copies of both sides, and they're probably not even entitled to it. Number 11. Okay, number 11 is interesting. This is fun. It's a real estate auction, and real estate auctions are great for white elephant type properties like a geodesic dome, kind of a strange property, or something that's a little bit very specific. And that might be one of the only ways to get this property sold. But there are a lot of properties, like in New Zealand, in Australia, when I visited there a number of years ago and visited with brokers there, that's the preferred way of selling properties in New Zealand or Australia is auctions. And there's a lot of properties that are unique or properties that they're trying to create a lot of interest in. Karl Malone, who was one of our famous MVP basketball players for the Utah Jazz for a number of years, when he sold his property, which was a beautiful property. Of course, basketball stars make good money, but he sold it by an auction. He loved it. He thought it was great. He knew what day it was going to sell, and he was happy with the money he got. So they had a good auctioneer, and they did a lot of publication, and there was some notoriety because it was his house, and a lot of people came to the auction, and it worked out very, very well. And so auctions can be a fantastic way to sell interesting type properties or white elephant type properties or properties that that either could create a lot of interest and excitement or they're just kind of weird, like a geodesic dome, something odd. So what are we looking at here? Who must supervise this? The real estate commission? Oh, heavens, no. They're only going to get involved if they think there's a problem. The sales agent, the associate broker, or the principal broker? Well, the rules actually state, guys, that the principal broker has to be there at the auction. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be the one calling the auction with that auction gibberish, hey, that kind of thing. But once that price is determined and the gavel comes down, the principal broker takes that winner of the auction back to a table or a desk, and he sits down and fills out the normal settlement type or the normal sales type documents. So the correct answer to this one, number 11, is A, principal broker. And this is one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of auctions, because principal brokers, quite frankly, particularly if they have 300 agents, don't want to get involved that much in each individual transaction unless it's absolutely necessary. But that's the rule as it stands now. We've been trying to get that changed with the division to where it could be a sales manager or a branch managing broker, but right now they're kind of sticking to just principal broker. It's because we don't see that many auctions, but that's probably one of the reasons why. So maybe you're auction qualified or something. We'll see. We're trying to get that changed, but it has not changed, and we've been at it now for 10 years that I know of. And it just doesn't change. Number 12. Number 12, the listing agent is guaranteed to the seller that the agent will sell a property within 60 days, or the agent's going to buy the property. Which of the following statements is true? Okay. The agent's required to place a cash bond to back up the guarantee. B, a written disclosure of all terms of the guarantee must be furnished before the listing is taken. In other words, if you're going to guarantee sale, they need to know what that means. That sounds really good. Okay, this is not legal in Utah. That's not true. A guaranteed sale must have a loan officer approve financing before the agreement. That's not true either. You just have to have B, a written disclosure of all the terms of the guarantee, and that's before they sign the listing. Okay, we do have a guaranteed sales program. Here's how it works. And normally, we have several experienced agents from the office come through, each independently coming up with the figure they think the property is going to sell for. Then the broker takes probably the middle one or maybe the lowest one, and they'll write a guaranteed sale at that price. Now, obviously, they probably want to get a little bit more money than what the guaranteed sale would give them. But on the other hand, if they've got to get out of town, they may like the idea of having a guaranteed sale. Um, and but no cash bonds needed. It is legal in Utah, and you don't have a loan officer approval. It's just your broker has to have a very clear um, document that says here's how it will work, and it has to be written disclosure, and it has to be um, part of that listing contract file. Okay. Number 13. Now, here's an agent that contacts their broker to let them know that they may have a problem, in the transaction they've been working on for 6 months. Probably is not going to close now because the contract was signed correctly, weren't signed correctly 4 months ago. What supervisory rule would have helped the broker to prevent this from happening? Okay, agent, you got a problem. It's been under contract for a long time, but the contracts were defective. Okay, making all this public information, like people can come to the office and look at all your under contract files and stuff. Oh, absolutely not. That's private information. That wouldn't have prevented this issue. I mean, and people aren't going to go along with that. B, verify that all the agents are licensed. Well, obviously there's a problem here, and there's a mistake that was made, and we're looking for a supervisory rule. Okay, so of course the licenses are all licensed; they're already there. That's not going to help. C, storage of all the files. Well, we need to look at them. What supervisory rule would have helped the broker prevent this problem? Well, obviously it's D, provide regular oversight of the agent's transactions. So when a broker has any number of agents, I mean, less is easier or more. It's going to take more work on the broker's behalf. But the broker, when these contracts come in, okay, they need to review them all. Not when the problem comes up, but they will need to review them because they're the ones that are ultimately responsible, and they're the ones that are supposed to have all the experience. And they kind of gave that away in the last sentence when they said supervisory rule. Your broker is responsible for all these contracts, both listings, okay, and under contracts, purchase contracts as well. But here is a situation where the broker should be providing regular oversight and reviewing the transactions when they first go under contract. So if he sees there's a problem or she sees there's a problem, you get the contracts fixed, right from the get-go. And then that way it doesn't sit there maturing and actually rotting in this case. Let's look at number 14, please. Now, you're getting really busy and your business is great, so you decide to hire some people to help you. And you may want someone to help put up signs. You may want someone to run contracts around, or be kind of a gopher that delivers things, picks up things, and that kind of thing. But the key here is they're an unlicensed assistant. Now, obviously, if they're a licensed assistant, they can do anything you can do. They have a license, okay, and that's good, because they can do it all. But this says unlicensed, so office and clerical tax, prospecting. No, prospecting is something that licensed agents do. Deal directly with the property. Well, that's what licensed agents do. Now, I don't know, would putting up a sign meaning they're dealing directly with the property? No, not particularly. Putting a lockbox on the property, that is that dealing directly with the property? No. When we're talking about dealing directly with the property, we're talking about terms, contracts, pricing, that kind of thing. Doing cold calls. Now, all of these things, prospecting, dealing directly with the property as far as presenting offers, that sort of thing, cold calls, soliciting business, all that requires a license. And this specifically said unlicensed. So what can unlicensed people do? They can do office and clerical tasks. They can set up files. They could order a sign to be put up. They could help place advertising. They can even write some ads. But they're clerical and office type duties. Prospecting, calling people on the phone or knocking on doors, that requires a license. Dealing directly with the property, meaning presenting offers or negotiating price reductions, holding an open house, that requires a license. And cold calls, soliciting business, that requires a license. Okay, number 15, please. Okay, number 15 says a licensed agent that works under a principal broker as a personal assistant can only be compensated by who? All right, things are going great. And you want to build a team. And so you've got 3 licensed agents that are working with you as team members of your team. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean you're a principal broker. Okay. These people are licensed. Who is holding their license underneath them? Well, your principal broker. Okay. So it's compensation time. They got a transaction put together. Who can hand that licensed assistance a commission piece or a piece of the commission? Okay. Now, we're not talking about a wage. You can hire someone and pay them a wage. Okay. But if they're compensated by a sale, okay, the only person that can compensate them is the principal broker. Can't be you, the team leader. It can't be the client directly, and it can't be the division of real estate. They're not going to compensate anybody. Okay, so correct answer to this one is the principal broker. Now, why? Well, they're a licensed assistant. Now, if this licensed assistant is kind of doing a dual role, meaning they're working with you as a personal assistant, and they're getting a wage, then that's different. But if they're compensated by transaction, then that looks like you're sharing a commission. And you cannot share a commission with someone unless they're licensed. And of course, any commission check that a sales agent license receives must come through who? The principal broker, not another sales agent. Okay? Not a big deal. I mean, it was all part of the situation you set up to compensate this person when you first hired them. Just be aware that if you're hiring licensed assistants to work with you as part of your team, you got to be careful that if you're compensating them on a per transaction basis, that check doesn't come from you. It comes from your principal broker that you both are affiliated with. That might sound like a splitting hairs or something that's maybe all that not important, but I'm telling you, if the auditors come and they see that you're paying them and it's not the principal broker, that looks like you're sharing that they're receiving commissions from someone other than your principal broker. It's going to be a real problem. So just be very careful with that. When you're setting up a team, make sure you sit down with your principal broker and make sure that all the rules are followed. And your principal broker should know what those rules are. Number 16, and if they don't, then research them and find out. If a home is sold as is, what is true? Well, a licensee will still be held liable for not disclosing known property defects. Just because you're advertising it as is, if you know there's a problem like a cracked foundation or something that would be considered a material fact, you still have to disclose that, okay? B, a buyer has no recourse for property problems after the settlement. Well, that is true. They're buying it as is. A seller can hide defects to sell their home. Well, that is, no. Buyer does have recourse for things that could have, particularly if they were hidden, particularly C here. Okay, so maybe they were disclosed, but he still could have some recourse. Maybe he put in his offer that that there would be some help in settling that problem, and maybe very specific help as far as amounts go. A seller can hide defects. No, a seller can't hide defects, and a seller must make all repairs requested by the buyer. No, the buyer could say, well, I want the whole house painted and I want new sod put in the backyard. And they make all kinds of requests. But, the seller could say, no, I'm not doing that. And they'd probably counter back and say, I'll sell it to you at the price you have, but I'm not doing all these repairs and I'm not putting new sod in the back either. So of this one, if you're selling it as is, A is the correct answer. A licensee will still be held liable for not disclosing known property defects. You can't hide a defect from a potential buyer just because you're saying, well, you're buying this as is. Can't do that. Okay. And this might happen a lot, as we enter into a market where we're seeing more foreclosures and you're selling properties for banks. You need to protect your client. If you're listing properties for banks, you're listing REOs, or sometimes called OREOs, other properties owned, other real estate owned, OREO, or real estate owned, bank foreclosures. You need to protect your bank. You need to protect your client as best you can. Now, the banker is not a property inspector, so what I require on foreclosed type properties, properties that are owned by an institution that had a loan and ended up foreclosing, and now they're ended up being other real estate owned, or something they didn't want but they got. They wanted their money back on the loan, and now they listed it with you so they could get as much as their money back as possible, hopefully more. But that doesn't mean that you can hide any defects, whether it's a bank-owned property or whether it's just a normal property owner. If there's a known defect, you need to put that into property disclosure. And now what I do with my banks, since they're not owners, they haven't lived there, is I require that they do two things. Number one is I require that they get a property inspection and they pay for it. Okay, because they don't know what the condition of that property is. That might cost them as much as $500-600. And number two, I require them, if they want me to list that property, to not only give a property disclosure, but to also give a home warranty. Now, all that together will cost anywhere between maybe $1,000, maybe $1,200 to the bank. And they're going to be not excited to do that. But the way I talk them into it is, look, this is the best non-lawsuit insurance you'll ever get. If you had a professional inspector come out and say, here's what's wrong with this property, because you don't know, and quite frankly, I'm not a home inspector, and you give that to a potential buyer, then they knew what they were getting. That's going to go a long way from them, trying to get a lawyer that will represent them in a case. The lawyer is going to say, well, you knew what you were getting. They even bought a home inspection for you. Why are you upset? You knew the foundation was broken or cracked. Well, we didn't know what that meant. Well, you should have known what that meant. They told you about it. Okay. So the fact that a buyer, in that case, is going to make getting in front of a judge and convincing the judge to convince that bank seller to fix something when they bought it as is, and when they received a property inspection for them to review, is this, it's not going to go to court, unless they want to pay the attorney $3,000 or $4,000 in advance, or maybe $30,000, depending on the type of property and the amount of money involved. So a licensee will still be held liable for not disclosing known property defects. Come on, guys, always disclose. You can't hide defects. And it's best to find them out, And so if you're going to be doing bank REOs, it's great to get 4 or 5 listings at a time from a bank in a market where they're getting a lot of foreclosures. Man, I could really keep you busy and wonderful. And that is a good piece of business to have, but you need to do it on a professional basis, and you got to convince the bank, look, we got to get people, this is lawsuit insurance, okay, or non-lawsuit insurance. We got to give people known defects, and we got to give people the home warranty. So if something does go wrong, 2 weeks after moving the property and the dishwasher goes out or something, because you don't know and I don't know. Let's just give them a home warranty. And it's going to cost us $1,100, but we'll just adjust the price, so that's can be taken care of. It's just a good way to do business, even with a non-commercial seller like just a normal homeowner. Number 17. Here we go. Our new one. And N is a real estate agent. Cool. And they are representing both buyer Z and seller Y. Cool. I mean, that means you're on both sides of the commission. You know, dual agency is okay. It's allowed, but you just need to do it with written disclosure. To whom must they disclose they're a limited agent? Well, only to the buyer, only to the seller? No. Both these people are your clients. It said you're representing both of them. So you must disclose to both clients. I like C. Well, I like it because it's the right answer too. Okay. C is correct. D, they need not disclose that they're a limited agent. No, no. Both buyer and seller are going to know. Come on, you got a sign out in front of the property has your name on it, probably. Um, this is not uncommon in commercial properties because a lot of commercial properties, the owner doesn't want their tenants to know they're selling the property. So they don't want to sign out in front of the property for sale. Well, if it's for sale, their tenants might leave or not enter in, or not extend their lease, which could affect the value of the property. If they got half the property vacant now because they figure, well, the new owner's going to come in and want to raise the rent, and they're on month to month, so they may not want to sign on the property, and they may not, may want to keep this on the down low. But you've got to disclose to the buyer and seller what's going on because you're representing both of them. Okay. In our last question for tonight, number 18. Number 18 says, which of the following actions are authorized for brokers and associate brokers, but not sales agents? So what can you do that the lowly sales agent cannot do? Okay. A, prepare the settlement documents. B, prepare listing agreements. Any agent, whether you're a broker or associate broker or just a sales agent, can prepare listing agents. So it's not that one. Prepare offers. Any agent, even if you're just a sales agent, can also prepare an offer. D, prepare broker opinion letters. You can prepare property estimates of what they're worth. Sometimes we call them CMAs. I call mine market studies. But, I mean, they expect you to come in and list that property and have an idea what it's going to sell for. I mean, that's one of the things you need to do is give them an idea. So you can do all those B, C, and Ds, okay? However, sales agents cannot prepare settlement documents. Only brokers and associate brokers can prepare settlement documents. Truth is, you're not going to be preparing them anyway. The title companies pretty much take care of that as part of their title fees. So whether you're on the buyer side or seller side of a transaction or on both sides, probably title company is going to do it, but you could do it. Something that, is even going to be on your broker test that you need to prepare for. There's part of that test where you're going to have to do some prorations and look at some settlement documents and actually put some of the fees in there, so it's just part of the broker's test. Okay, that's our 18 questions for tonight. We appreciate you being here. You can pass this exam, but seeing questions like these 18 we've gone through tonight, are an excellent way to prepare for the exam. And we have, good grief, over 50 of these types of videos that you can watch to help you prepare for the real estate exam. And I hope you appreciate the fact that, these are right now at our YouTube channel website, because you probably found it, and I hope you're enjoying them. But also, you're welcome to call. My name is Rick Roller, and my number is 801-556-8000. So if you have specific questions about any of the questions tonight or any of the other questions you might see in our video or anything else you're concerned about, you're welcome to call. Usually it'll be a short call and we'll get your head around, straightened out, and you can relax and go forth in life. So appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you, Dan, for being the technical genius for the night, and we'll see you out there again.
Thanks for watching. If you want to show some appreciation to our instructors, be sure to like and subscribe so that they see how much you enjoyed it. And if you want any additional review material, check the links below for our full suite of practice materials for the real estate license exam. Thank you.